Welcome to Roots and Ruminants, your podcast for creative and innovative use of farm, pasture, and rangeland. We're going back to the basics of raising and grazing livestock, growing your own forage, and practical land use.
Welcome back, everybody. We are on to another episode of Roots and Ruminants, and sitting down on kind of a rainy, cloudy summer day, humid as heck, with Luke Hiebert. And Luke and Jared, you guys have known each other for quite a while. Actually,
Luke's my neighbor.
Right?
My neighbor. Yep.
Are you both? Do you consider yourself residents of Carpenter? Luke,
I
you
don't think
a resident of Carpenter.
My address is Carpenter. I'm exactly halfway between Carpenter and Iroquois, so.
Our address is Willow Lake, and I kind of tell people to reference Bancroft if they're real local to where I live. But I like Carpenter.
Yeah.
I would claim Carpenter culturally, if not
so
geographically.
For our listeners around the country that don't know Carpenter, why would they know Carpenter?
Right.
You're located in, what do you call it, East Central South Dakota, right?
Yeah.
James River Valley. You got pretty decent farm ground, but maybe throw some challenges as far as it having some pothole areas, but good grass country, good cattle country, cow-calf area. And that's kind of what you do, right, Luke? I mean, you farm and you have some cows, have some sheep.
Yeah, we got a cow-calf herd, background the calves to 900 pounds or so, and just got into sheep here a couple years ago.
Smart man.
Yeah.
Trying that out.
I think, okay, so I don't know if I brought this up in the podcast, but I'm going to bring this up for context when you ask the question about, hey, where do we call home, as a Carpenter, and I mentioned Willow Lake, mailing address, Carpenter culturally. So Luke and I both live on the, call it the front range of the James River Valley, right? The first 10 miles. The center part of the James River Valley, that got like all the silt from the glacier, and it is phenomenal farm ground from Columbia all the way through the irrigated stuff through Huron, down the way through there. Fantastic, like 250 bushel corn, like primo ground. Frankfort can't fail. Raise a crop every year. That is not the James River Valley experience that Luke and I get to have. Okay, we get the place where all the silt came from to go to the center of the valley, and so we get a stripped down, really, really shallow, sometimes non-existent topsoil layer that goes into, a lot of like saline muck in a lot of places. But so Carpenter, clay, very much clay.
Some springs go into a mud hole and there's no bottom in it.
Right, and then it'll dry out permanently, like for months, right? So then it's like rock hard. It would be. I don't think anybody.
You can lose a crescent wrench down a crack.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know why we don't make bricks here. I don't think we could ever culturally, like as a civilization, afford to make things out of bricks in this part of the world. But I think we have that kind of a value base. All right. So the James River Valley is typically considered the start of the American West from that standpoint. So people in Carpenter, for the most part, are a ranch culture, right? They predominantly, most of them will have beef cattle. If not, they have most recently tore up a lot of their pasture ground to raise cattle. So my grandparents, my mom's side, grew up in Carpenter, the Lamonts, and they grew up ranching, beef cattle, sheep, everything done on horseback, and farmed almost predominantly wheat and forages, sometimes oats, but that was it. No soybeans, corn for silage. My dad's side of the family grew up in Willow Lake. Milked cows, farrowed out sows, corn, soybeans. Once in a while they plant like flax or something like that, right? Never really raise any wheat. Okay, so very, very different culturally. Mm-hmm. It's 7 miles apart. Okay, it's 7 miles apart, but it is the divide between it was the end of the corn belt for like 50 years. Okay, from basically 1950 to 2000, Willow Lake was the western edge of the corn belt. Now it's 200 miles to the west. But that culturally, that's still the difference there. So Luke and I live, and Luke's entire operation is focused in the first throws of the James River Valley, real tough saline areas, very poorly drained type area, right? Is that
that's right? Yep. Drainage ditches can You can lose a front wheel of a tractor in if you're not careful with your management.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay. So how'd the spring go for you, Luke? Did you get everything planted as you wanted, or did you have to do some swapping, or are you still trying to figure out how to get the last of it in?
No, we actually got all of it in. There
Good.
was, I shouldn't say that because there was 40 some acres that we could have dinged around on and messed around with a corn planter, or rather soybean planter, I guess, at that point because it's planting soybeans. But left out about 37 acres on that field, and I just went out there and planted some Japanese millet here the other day. But everything else got put in. There was one field of my uncle's got put in, I think, on the cutoff date. So it was nip and tuck getting her in there, but.
Yeah. Okay. And you've got some oats that you're growing this year.
Yeah.
You got some rye.
Yep, oats and rye are growing. They're both a contract crop through Milborn.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
Yeah, so excited about that.
How's the rye looking? Is head's feeling pretty well? Have you got out there much and started picking apart?
I haven't checked the last. It's probably a week ago. I was out there, I guess, and they've pollinated here a little while ago. So yeah, the head should be filling out, but I haven't shelled one out.
Yeah.
To see how they're doing. The oats are looking good too. They're all headed out pretty well, I think. And
seemed to be a week of pollination. Did you guys notice that we were spot spraying thistles and pastures over the weekend, and you drive through and the pastures. The brome is literally 3 to 4 foot tall.
Yeah.
And the pollen is just covering everything. Just yellow dust. You can almost see a haze at times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was just blowing off.
That's crazy. It's too bad it's cloudy. We got a beekeeper keeps some bees across the road from our house, and I don't think they're enjoying the cloudy weather so much.
Yeah. Yeah, Ansley and Allison both asked me what that yellow stuff was that's all over the dogs. Like, why are the dogs turned yellow? Is this from brome grass pollen?
Yeah.
Yeah, it has been a heavy pollination week. Okay. What else? So you got some Japanese millet. You've done some other plantings here recently. Tell us about some of the strategies you've incorporated to try and go to war with saline areas.
So we got a piece of farm ground. We bought it here 2 years ago, and I'm trying to make payments on one of the quarters. And it's really, really bad with that. 30 acres of it was, in my opinion, just totally untillable. But the guy before had been trying to farm it. So the first thing I did was get a Hamilton blend mix from Milborn there, and went out there and scattered that through there. And then, of course, that was in the fall of 22. So 23 obviously was super, super dry. And you could kind of row it out there. It was coming. It was coming a little bit. I went out and reseeded it actually in February. We had a kind of a warm snap, and I went out and did some frost seeding out there. And it looks really nice now. For the most part, it filled out. I've planted through some of them white spots that haven't even grown weeds. I've went out there probably 4 or 5 times. Every time I have a drill that needs to be cleaned out, I go out there and drill through that. And it's starting to fill in just a little bit. It's not as much white as there was. So that's a big one. I think I planted, up here around my house too, there's a bunch of creeks. Kind of cut it up, and I got tired of planting in there twice a year with a cool season, then a warm season, and then having to hay it and rake it all the time. So I planted that to pasture for the sheep. So I've planted about 70 acres of pasture in the last 2 years, I think, around here.
Yeah. And a variety, right? We've done anything from native grass, warm season grass mixes in the uplands to, like I said, that Hamilton, which is almost entirely improved grasses or introduced grasses.
Yep.
And a little bit in between, some different hay mixes.
Yep.
I think.
Yep. This one around my house, I should have went out and got a picture of it. I wonder if you'd bring this one up. That was a fun one. I guess Jared and Justin, I think you two kind of got together and put that one together for me. There's some wildflowers out there and quite a bit of legume and some clovers and stuff like that. So, pretty enthused about that one. That one's coming along really nice. It's been a perfect spring for starting a new pasture.
Yeah.
Yes. After having 2 of the toughest springs to start a pasture.
I agree.
Yeah.
The best, I think. But that's true. These saline areas you kind of need a little bit of drier pattern to get them going though. Otherwise, they're pretty mucky and they stay wet, and so
Drowned out.
yeah, they just drown out. But now, yeah, you have those grasses kind of there, right, from the last couple of years there.
Yeah, that'll help a lot. There's this little, about a 6-acre patch. The pasture of that piece of farm ground we bought, there's some pasture attached to it. And he was trying to farm about 30 acres on the other back side of that pasture, too. There's about 6 acres of that I planted at this Hamilton, and you'll never get in there to hay it. I'm planning on running sheep over there here after a while to graze it down. But it's just terrible mucky down in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the Hamilton is it's kind of a smorgasbord of wheat grasses. So, like, the one that does tolerate the salts the most is probably tall wheatgrass, and then there's one it's a green wheatgrass, which is called AC Saltlander. Sort of actually a really good palatable wheatgrass too. And then there's some Garrison creeping foxtail in there, which it'll tolerate standing water. It can be flooded, and that thing will live where cattails and reed canary lives. And then there's some intermediate wheatgrass, and then some salinity max alfalfa, which is just a saline tolerant alfalfa too. So it's a nice concoction of tolerant grasses to those soils.
It's a little bit interesting looking at that field because there's a little bit of elevation change in it. Not a lot, but there's obviously a low area, and then there's a bit of a hill. And it's interesting looking at what species, where the alfalfa is predominant and, where some of their grasses are. And I haven't been out there. I'm not familiar with all those grasses, and I have this app on my phone, and I use that some. And I've been wanting to go out there and take a walk through there and figure out what some of them grasses are, learn to recognize them. And I haven't done that yet. So,
which app do you use?
It's called Picture This.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That's one I use.
Is it?
That's one I use too.
There's
I
one
like
called
it.
It seems fairly accurate.
I think so.
It doesn't get all of them, but
I wonder, like on the wheatgrasses, like how well I could tell the difference. I mean, it does get a little bit awry, which it stinks because I don't use it so much in the plants that I know, right?
Yeah.
I only use it in the ones I don't know. It's like, oh, great, this is what it is. And then once in a while I'll use it. I'm like, that's not quite right, Like, it's supposed to be Missouri goldenrod. It's not Canadian goldenrod. I don't think, unless my whole life has been a lie, and all the Missouri goldenrod that I've ever seen is actually either stiff goldenrod or Canadian goldenrod.
Yeah,
I don't know.
It goofs up a little bit with some of that stuff. Another one is alfalfa. It'll sometimes pull up alfalfa, and sometimes it'll do medic. And medic is the overall species, right?
Right. Well, is it pull up black medic? So the black medic said that. Do you know what black medic is, Luke?
I don't know if I do.
Okay, black medic is. It looks like it almost looks like kind of like what you'd think would be like a white Dutch clover. It's a super low-lying clover, but it's got a tiny little yellow flower on it, right? And it never gets very high. It's like a viney ground thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's black medic. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's okay. It's a good thing, I guess. A lot of people get enthusiastic about it. Actually, like a lot of range people are like, "Oh, you got black medic." It's really good. It's like, yeah.
Well, there's not much forage value there.
No, but it's supposed to be like, I don't know, do things good.
Is it a legume?
Yeah,
it is.
We've got a few bottle lambs left over, and we got a little cage set up. We drag around on a piece of grass and that we mow, and there's a bunch of that stuff growing, and then they'll sit there and nibble that stuff off.
Yeah.
You have a lamb tractor, like a chicken tractor?
Yeah, kind of. It was just kind of because I don't know, we didn't have a place set up in the barn this spring because we didn't hardly have any trouble with lambing, and suddenly we ended up with a couple. And these two that I'm talking about, their mom got mastitis real bad, got blue bag or something. And so they had been out on pastures. They knew a little about grazing already. And
let them pick.
A little lamb tractor.
Yeah,
I was thinking so back to thinking through what's in pastures and looking at stuff, and you mentioned that too, Luke, on that pasture mix that you planted next to your house and all the diversity it has. We've got like 3 main pastures that we've just been spot spraying for a long time, for as long as I know. But we rented a new pasture this year, which in the lease requires you to spray it every fall with a helicopter. So there is every year. So there's nothing
every
but
year.
Grass, every year, nothing but grass in there. It's so cool. It's a beautiful pasture, but it's not nearly as fun driving through that one.
Yeah, I was just out the other day I hooked up the stock chopper, We have an old balzer that you can open up on the back, and I was out mowing some thistle patches in the pasture instead of spraying them, and Dad's like, "Why are you doing that?" Like, well, there's all this lovely clover out here, some milkweed for the butterflies, and
Yeah.
yeah, it makes a difference. You kind of boring when you drive in those pastures that have been sprayed a lot or something. It's just like, there's nothing out here.
Yeah. And I think the thistles, for some reason, it feels like the thistles, if you get into a cycle of spraying every year around here, every third year, every fifth year, I don't know. It seems like the thistles stay under control for a little bit, and the thistles come back first and more aggressive after you spray. Like it's like they're the first thing to break through the herbicide cycle and like come roaring back in. Because I mean, the pastures where we don't spray, then I guess we haven't blanket sprayed anything that we own or rent or control, but the other ones that I'm, like I said, landowner's decision. Sometimes they want them sprayed every 3 years. I haven't heard of every year. That's aggressive. But anyway, so we got to do it. And those are the ones that we got to chop thistles. There's nothing else out there, but it's just grass, and then there's some thistles coming. The rest of them, we've got a fair amount of stuff, some good, some bad. Out there, we don't have as bad of thistles. Observation, anyway.
Yeah, this one I was in it's a pasture. You turn pears out right behind the yard in the spring, so it gets really aggressive grazing very early.
Mm-hmm.
And it gets overgrazed because of that. I mean, we feed on it and stuff. And I think that's why there's so much thistle in that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they're coming. I mean, don't you think they're there to kind of protect the ground, protect the grass? Like when you see a thistle patch, nothing's going in there to eat the grass, and so obviously there's some sort of. I mean, if you think through why it's there and what it's doing.
Yeah. I don't
think it's not a native plant though either, so you can't really say that it was meant to grow up.
Meant to grow there.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think you're giving thistles too much credit. I don't think we have to be nice. I don't think we have to be nice to every plant. Okay. Not all roots are good. Okay.
I'm not saying it's good. I'm saying
no. I know.
It
has a role
because there's a need for it to grow there.
I agree. Yeah, it's balancing some things out, but I still don't like it.
But it seems like a good patch of that thistle. Once it gets going, it does choke out the grass that is there. That stuff gets so thick and dense, and after a while, that's all you have.
I hate thistles so much. If I had all the time in the world and all the energy, I would do nothing but chop thistles off at the root with the machete. That would be what I would do.
That's your choice. Your tool.
Yeah. I like some of those. I don't mind some of those, like the musk and the bull. They got such a big, pretty flower on them. Sometimes, if you just got one or two out in your pasture, you're like, oh, that's a little color out there or something.
Well, thanks for joining today, Luke. We appreciate your time.
Jared isn't agreeing there. I did go and clip some heads off of one I drove by the other day, and I clipped the heads off. And
I moderately agree. Some of the wavy leaf thistles and plumeless and things like that aren't so bad, aren't near as bad. And I do cringe that people use those and buy them and use them as like ornamental plants in their landscaping, and I'm just like, no, don't do it.
Well, it's a common bird seed for finches.
Yeah, that's true.
Thistle seed.
Yeah, I wonder where does that come from? What does that field look like? Where they harvest that thistle seed for birds? That must be terrible.
I've got some neighbors that may be what they're doing, but they never get it combined in time.
I wonder if you could, like, if you're cleaning seed and you get, I don't know, something in that has a bunch of it. Oh. When you clean it out, then you're like, oh, sweet, I might as well throw this or sell this to the birdseed company.
Yeah, that might work, huh?
I don't know.
Maybe it's Canadians. I mean, that's where it came from. That's why we have this problem in the first place, is the darn Canadians.
Yeah. They brought it across the 49th parallel, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. Blame Canada. And there's a song about that, isn't there? Blame. It's a South Park. Anyway, we don't need to go there. All right. Let's
go back to Japanese millet, because that is also like a very timely crop that a lot of people are thinking about planting right now. So you planted Japanese millet. What's the intention or the goal with that?
Well, the goal would be to go out there and mow it off after a while and bale it up, I guess, dry, hopefully. It is Japanese and it is in wet ground, so there's a chance we'd have to wrap it wet, and there's a chance I wouldn't get in there at all and have to turn the cows loose in there. So yeah, there's a couple options you have there. I don't know that I'd prefer to bale it at this point.
Yeah, I think most would say that too, and it's one that definitely tolerates those types of soils that are a little bit wet or saline, but then it regrows too. So
Yeah,
if you can get Japanese in June, you'll get a couple cuttings or a couple grazings off of it.
I'm hoping to get one good cutting off of it and then let livestock graze it this fall. And maybe if I wait late enough, it'll regrow enough. There'll be some good pheasant hunting out there too.
There you go.
Yeah.
Pheasants do like millet seeds.
They do. If you ever clean a pheasants out and they're anywhere near millet, they will have a gullet full of millet.
Yeah.
Like chock full. Doves too, man. Doves and millet.
Yeah, it's a nice little seed. I guess it's easy to pick up and perfect bird food.
So this time, in our area, you kind of mentioned like some stuff that did get planted late, right at the date. We're past the date now, right? So now we're in this fringe area zone where there's a fair amount of stuff that hasn't been planted, and we got to figure out what we're going to do with it and when throughout the year. So options that we're talking about now on an almost hourly basis here, Justin, probably by the minute there, is do we go with millet or sorghum sedan grass family? And I'm guessing 90% of the solutions for forage are those two options, right?
Yeah, I think that's true.
Yep.
Just because they're going to have to grow through the summer heat. And the millets are probably going to be your option if you want to make dry hay.
Mm-hmm.
And your sorghums and sedans are going to be more of a silage chopping option or grazing option.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Luke, how many different kinds of millets have you planted over the years?
We've only done 2, Japanese and German.
Okay.
And I asked Casey, I think it was Casey I talked to when I got this Japanese, and I said, what's pearl millet cost? And that was obviously way more money than the other one. And so I would like to plant some more of them millets sometime, because several different kinds that I haven't tried. But
yeah. And the pearl millet too, that comes in BMR, right, too, Justin?
Yeah, it is. There's probably been more breeding improvements to pearl millet than German or Jap, and so we've seen some better yield off of pearl. It's certainly leafy. It really tillers up well, and that one too, if you can get it in early enough, you can get multiple cuttings of that one because it just continues to shoot out new tillers. And
Usually by the time we get to millet season around here, we're already into Japanese and German. Like pearl millet's like hey, we had a conversation back in February. You want to plant millet on this 50-acre piece, and it's going to go in as soon as you can plant millet, right? Middle of May, 20th of May, you're going to plant millet. Then we're like talking pearl. By the time we get a month later, it's such a later maturing, it's slightly more expensive, that kind of stuff. We're already kind of hedging back towards German and Japanese.
Okay, I didn't realize that you needed to be on your ball with that pearl. Remember that.
To take advantage of it,
Yeah, right.
It'll still work now for sure, but like to take advantage, like you said, the higher price point, the extra breeding, the multiple cutting, scenario is multiple cutting and it's layer maturing. So Japanese multiple cutting, earlier maturing, so we can get it, get the 2 in on time.
Yep.
And I think pearl is probably more geared towards like a wet bale system versus a dry hay. I mean, it's just a little bit coarser than Japanese.
Yeah.
And so it's a bit trickier to get cured out right.
Sure. Makes a bigger windrow.
Yep. But Highway 281, you get to Highway 281 and everybody talks a lot more about pearl millet, I've noticed.
I've got some friends out at Newell, and they've planted it before.
Yep.
And
that's kind of millet.
Hay out of it. No problem.
Yeah, that's kind of millet country. Yeah, they can. That's probably why. Okay, so then what other millets are we depriving Luke of trying? Siberia, basically Siberian's kind of a punt millet.
It's the earliest foxtail type millet to use, but it doesn't seem to be as tall as German or White Wonder. And the one that I think more people need to start looking at is White Wonder.
Yeah, I forgot about that one actually.
Well, we just keep continuing to get reports. It seems like in a year where maybe we ran short of German. Well, last year was that year. We ran short of German. Yeah. Okay. And we have some other years. People will try White Wonder, and they get the feed test back, and they're like, this stuff is way better than German. And the cows kind of like it a little better. They're like, I want more White Wonder. So
I see.
I think there's something to that. Even though German has been the standard millet in South Dakota for decades, White Wonder is probably going to push quality and yield just a tick better.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I do think German might be a little bit more drought tolerant.
I was
And
just going to
probably
ask if
comes
that,
down to me.
yeah, if that White
Okay.
Wonder would does it kind of replace German in those other aspects like the drought resistance and stuff? But you just said no, it doesn't. So
It's pretty darn close though.
yeah,
They're really
Yeah.
really similar.
Yeah, maybe just a better breeding. I think that millet sales in my area, if you rename German millet to foxtail millet, you know, like it's otherwise referred to, I think sales would go down by like 50%, and people would go to other millets. But I do think, because in Luke and I's area, about 75% of the people have a strong German heritage ancestrally, right?
Yeah.
Strong German ancestors, and I think there's like kind of a pride factor. I'd be like, oh, I'm getting German millet. You know what I mean? Like, German. And so if it was foxtail millet, I bet we would just have to ship it all back every year.
Another
And yeah, but
with that Japanese millet, I didn't realize that stuff would like wet feet like it did one of the first years I planted it. I went out. It was in 19 when it was so wet, and I had a short window, and I went out there and quick planted a few acres of that stuff, and then it started raining and raining, and that stuff
Yep.
was like, I finally turned cows into it, so it was standing water. It was like 6 inches
gosh.
deep out there, and the cows, you couldn't even see them when they went into this stuff. It was so tall. They just loved that.
Water
Hey.
buffalo.
I had no idea it did that.
When Japanese regrows, it does one of the coolest things. And other plants will do this, but it's so perfect when Japanese does it. When you cut it off, 6 inches high, 4 inches, whatever you're haying it at, it's got a hollow stem like an oat stem, right? Very different than like a pithier stem in some of the other millets. So it's got a hollow stem, and the new shoot comes back directly, 100% right through the cylinder hole that you've made, right?
Yeah.
And come through there. So it's got like a protector for the first 4 or 5 inches to get it up and out of the ground, and then it comes and blossoms out of it. It looks like bamboo when it
Okay.
comes back out of there.
I'll
Anyway,
take-
fun
take-
fact.
Yeah, I'll have to take note of that this year on that piece that we got.
This episode will be titled "Fun Facts About Millet."
It's gonna be a popular one.
It could be. It could be.
Ah.
Okay, so let's make sure we get all the fun facts in. Okay, so BMR, pearl millet's the only one we can do BMR with, right, Justin?
Correct.
Okay. And then we're not even going to talk about pro-cell millet for purposes of this conversation. It is only to be planted when all the other millets are sold out.
Yeah, well, maybe we will talk about it because
Okay, let's talk about it.
for a forage, it's
For
it's
forage.
last in line.
Yeah, for roots and
Millet.
remnants, yeah.
But some years, for some reason, there becomes no pro-so millet available because it's such a I don't know, niche crop for
Yeah.
bird seed and the bird food market, where you'll see that thing be worthless, and then you'll see that price just skyrocket. And then people plant pro-cell millet, or they'll just hold some in their bins and then cash out when that market goes up too.
Yeah.
Funny little pro-cell market. Isn't it?
Yeah, it's a fun crop, but
Yeah.
for forage purposes, it's okay. And we use it in cover crop mixes and stuff like that. It does just fine. It serves its purpose well there, but not as prominent of a forage. Shorter plant, right?
Yep.
Stockier plant, made for grain yield.
Yep.
I think it'd be great for like food plots, stuff like that. It'd be awesome because you're going to get more of what you want with just some cover and a lot of feed.
That it is. It's a great food plot millet. The choice
Okay.
of food plots.
So as complicated as the millet conversation is, then if we don't do millet, then we go into the sedan grass, sorghum family.
Yeah.
And that family is even more complicated yet.
Well, you got your forage sorghum
Yep.
and you got your sedan grasses.
Yep.
Your sedan grasses are mainly used for a hay crop or a really, aggressive grazing system.
Mm-hmm.
And your sorghums are definitely used for making silage and chopping them.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's BMRs of those and all sorts of different maturities. And those two, all corn seed companies carry forage sorghums. And so there are a lot of genetics and there's a lot of breeding programs of the forage sorghums. So we've seen improvements, and that's why we have this range of maturities to go north and south and east and west all over the country. But then you talk about getting confused, and we blend them, or not blend them, we breed them, we cross them. Sorghums with Sudan grasses to get a hybrid, sorghum Sudan grass hybrid.
Mm-hmm.
And then that kind of gives you a little bit more versatility. You get a finer stalk, you get the regrowth, but you get the yield from the forage sorghum.
And then we get all these features,
Yes.
that we can get laid in with that too. Luke,
VMR, photo period sensitive. We got brachytic types.
Yeah. So before we get into that, Luke, what's been your experiences with the sorghum Sudan grass family? What other things have you tried over the years? Did you put up some Sudan grass for hay at any point last couple
we
years?
have. Yeah, and I'm hoping to plant some more yet this year after the oats and peas come off.
Mm-hmm.
It's looking like a good wet spring here. I think we'll have plenty of moisture down there to get a good crop of that coming yet.
Mm-hmm.
We've planted it the last, I don't know, quite a few years. We've planted some variation of sorghum Sudan or something.
You've done both the brachytic, right, the dwarf and the non-dwarf, I'm guessing, or have you mostly been the dwarf?
I think it's mostly been dwarf.
Yeah.
I can't. Every time I come and get some, I think I get something different. It's just kind of whatever you have on hand or something. I was like, I need a little this or that. And
I know you've done some regular MS, or I guess now it's RS 9 or 1000. Which is straight sorghum Sudan grass.
That sounds right.
Yep. What's the? Some people call it cane. What is cane, Justin? Is that actually sorghum?
Yeah. The most similar thing to it is a true forage sorghum.
Okay.
But like there is sugar cane.
Yes.
Which would really be cane. But most of the times that was never actually a sugar cane being used as what people were referring to as a cane. It was just forage sorghum.
Some people will come in and be like, I need a couple bags of cane. And I'm like, like, what is that? Like, what do you want? And it's like, I don't know. Grandpa just said plant cane because, we didn't get anything else planted. And I was like, I don't know what that means, but I think it's sorghum Sudan grass, maybe sorghum. Like, what do you want? Tell me what you want to do, and then actually we can let's figure out what you want, and then we can figure out what we should plant instead of me trying to interpret what you're asking for.
Well, so that's like the sorghums do have a high sugar content, which would be most similar to cane.
Okay.
Yeah, we chopped a field for a neighbor one time, and the cutter was broke down or something. I was standing around, I was chewing on a stalk, kind of like you would a piece of sugar cane, and it wasn't bad, it wasn't quite as sweet. It was a little more bitter or something, but it was a lot more similar than what I was expecting, I guess. And
yep.
And if you put up sorghum silage, it is sweeter than corn silage for sure.
Yeah, and boy, if you don't get that stuff, it's hard to put that stuff up right. It runs out of your silage pile. You just have a lake out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is.
Most of the forage sorghums are pretty big maturity, and that's because they are all bred in the South. All of them come from Texas, and so trying to get a maturity that fits up here is a little bit tricky. We've got one now that I think actually, it's an 85 day, and I think that's kind of what we need up here to actually put the seed head on, have that seed head start to mature, so it's soft dough to dough stage when we chop it, so the plant's firing on the bottom, and you're closer to that 70% moisture content versus 80.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, some of these are so late maturing, and we tend to use them as plan C, D, or E crops that they get in so late that some of them don't even head out by the time we're like getting to the fall or frost, when we're harvesting them, and that's just not mature. It'd be
like chopping corn before putting the ear on.
Yeah. It's not gonna. You can't get it dry. You can't manage the dryness at all, the moisture.
And if you wait till after it freezes, then you risk it all laying over, being flat on the ground. Some of that, it seems like it wants to lay over sometimes.
I think the upgrades to sorghum Sudan grass and Sudan grass, the BMR and brachytic, are huge advantages. And they're a little bit more money, but you're not planting that much seed. It doesn't cost that much to upgrade. And I think that they... so I was talking to another neighbor of ours, Luke, last night, guy from just south and east of Bancroft, and he was talking about, hey, I've been 2 years in a row been planting that brachytic, BMR, sorghum Sudan grass, and he's like, it just puts up wonderful feed. I don't have any this year, but I have 75 acres that I haven't got to anything else. I'm going to have to plant something. And he was wondering like, well, do you have anything else out there? It's like, well, how do you like what you're doing? It's like, I love it. My cows love it. Like I can't feed them. I can give them my best grass hay. I can't replace that in my TMR ration with my best grass hay without my cows like being disappointed. Like I did that one day. I went from, they got, one of these Sudan grass bales, high sugar content, everything. And I said, I put like top notch grass hay bale in instead. And cows followed me back to the gate, like sniffed it and followed me back to the gate. It's like they are so, like, they're unbelievably good condition.
Yeah.
And I said, I haven't added any other grain or anything like that. Just that Sudan grass. It's like, well, and it yielded good. It's like, yeah, it yielded fantastic. Liked everything about it. It was my best conditioned field ground going into plant this next year. It's like, maybe don't switch. Maybe we should just do that again.
Just keep
maybe
doing
we
that.
maybe we found something that we can just use every year,
I listened to you guys' podcast, maybe the last one you did with that fellow from Mississippi that grazed hogs on.
Yeah.
That was pretty interesting listening to that.
Yeah. There's a lot of interesting stuff in that one.
You can use it anyway.
Yeah.
Okay. PPS, photo period sensitive. Justin, that is probably one of the features that is understood the least on what it is, what it means, and whether we should have it or not.
So the photo period sensitive sorghum Sudan grass hybrids are going to stay vegetative and not go into a reproductive state until the days get shorter than 12 hours. So as long as our days are really long, it's just going to continue to grow. So if we want to manage it like alfalfa, right, where we are on a cut schedule and we just go get that guy every 25, 30 days, that one works really well. Or if you're in an aggressive rotational grazing system where you want it to continue to come back, that one works really well. But if you want something to mature at the end of the season, it's a little bit funky because it will mature, but it's going to be really late, and it's going to be huge. So if we don't cut it, and if we just let it go, I mean, it will get like 12 foot tall. Absolutely monstrous. But that stuff, so the one that we have in our lineup is called Raptor. Its leaves, I'm not exaggerating, they're like 4 inches wide, and they're like 3 foot long. There's big old palm leaves on it. So it's a cool plant, but it's one that you want to manage in the system that you're putting in right.
Yep.
You got to mount that up.
Okay.
That makes sense. We touched about that a little bit last time, that podcast that Luke you're referring to. We talked about it a little bit, but I just wanted to kind of relate to maybe conditions up here. So grazing systems, is that going to go into, kind of a next time we redo a warm season optigraze, full length grazing system type warm season planting?
Yeah, it could fit really well into like even premium graze. Or I kind of want to bring on a baleage mix. And we've just got more and more people looking for something to plant specifically to wet bale. And that one, along with Pro Millet, work really well for that. And then you can throw in some other things like mung beans and hunter and winifred and kale. And you can get this concoction of brassicas, legumes, and grasses that works well to put up for baleage after you take off rye or oats and peas or something. Plus, you can get the regrowth back to then winter graze.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. How do a lot of people, what kind of baleage are they putting up? Like, we've done a little bit of it, and it was most of the time it was a deal where we had rain coming, so we quick had to go put it up, and we call a guy with a wrapper, and he comes and line wraps it. Is that how a lot of people are doing it?
I think that's how most people are doing it. If you've got the space to do it, most people would prefer that.
Okay.
But they've got these individual wrappers too, and some are on a baler, some are a separate piece of, it's its own implement that just goes through the field, grabs the baled bale, and then wraps it,
and dumps
it, and then you can come back and grab them and stack them. So.
And we've got a neighbor here that supposedly just bought a bale slice baler. I don't know a lot about him, and I haven't seen it, so I don't know that he bought it, but apparently you can make like a round bale, and it has some knives in it or something. It flakes off.
It flakes?
Yeah,
like a square bale?
It's like a square. It's like a big round square bale.
I have not heard of this.
Kind of. Yeah, I think it's called bale slice. So
Wow.
How do you do that? It
I
seems
don't
hard.
know. Yeah, I haven't seen them. I don't know if
Try that.
it's somehow cutting the
Yeah.
windrow as it comes in. You know, it makes you know
Yeah.
how you roll
Just
a bale.
chop it.
If
Yeah.
it just chops it somehow.
So then it kind of, when you get it unwrapped, it just kind of falls apart
I
a little
think
bit
so.
into chunks.
I think so.
So
I
you could-
thought about buying a few bales or having him come and custom bale a little bit for some alfalfa, and when I'd open up, put it in the shed and feed the sheep. You know, it'd be a little supplement.
Yeah. I had another conversation yesterday with a neighbor. We were talking about options. Like I said, this is that time of year. Everybody's looking for options, and we were talking about teff grass a little bit. He's like, "Yeah, I tried one bale, last year. It was okay. I'd go back." I was like, "How'd you get a bale?" He's like, so and so. Another neighbor had some for sale. Put it all up on some ground, and I called him up and I said, I want to get one. It's like one load. It's like, no, just a bale. I want to get one bale. The guy's got like 200 cows and 200 sheep. I just want to get one bale. I just want to try it. It's like,
And what did he think of his one bale?
He said, yeah, it was okay. But I said, I'd rather maybe put up grass hay, or maybe, wasn't, probably better than millet, probably better protein. But he's like, I thought it was, similar to grass hay. Is like, well, if you do the nutrient analysis, it's a lot better. But anyway, he only bought one 3 years ago. Hasn't bought one since. But I want to buy a bale. Same thing. I want to buy a bale from the bale slice guy.
Yeah.
I just want one. I just want one.
Just want one and try it out.
There's not many wrappers in our area, Luke.
No, the guy I use is from over by has a Brookings phone number and a Brookings address, I think.
Yeah.
Yep.
Most of the wrappers live to the east. You got a lot of wrappers by you, Justin, or
Yeah, there are around here. Yep. Just a tick more humid.
Yeah.
That bale slicer, it makes me think of a Pillsbury biscuit that flakes.
Yeah.
You
I
know
think
those
that's kind of
kind?
how it is. Yeah, I've been looking it up here, see if I can find some good pictures, and I'm not coming up with anything good on it, but I think that's how it is.
Oh, it slices that way.
I think so.
It slices the long way. Well, I don't know.
With the cylinder.
Yeah.
With
a piece of summer sausage.
Yep. And I think it's maybe some knives on the feed roll, like that little roll that after the windrow gets picked up goes over the pickup. There's a roller in there on some balers. And I think there's maybe some knives attached to that thing. So
I have a hard enough time keeping a regular baler going. I don't know if I could handle more slicing, more moving pieces.
More parts in there. And those, as soon as you hit a rock or something with one of those knives, you have to go out there and replace because it wouldn't be cutting. And you wouldn't know it till next winter when you're out there feeding and your bale's not coming apart like you want it to.
Yeah, if you call the equipment dealer and be like, what are you supposed to do when the rocks hit? It's like, why do you have rocks in your hayfield? It's like, there's rocks everywhere. Yeah. There's always rocks. What do you mean? Balers that don't...
We were talking about this a couple weeks ago, Jared, with the cost of grinding dry hay versus... And the loss and the waste accumulated with that versus putting up
the
wet
baleage,
hay. And how it's probably not that much more expensive, or maybe it's even cheaper if you ran the numbers with all the waste included in your shrink.
Oh, the shrink's got to be huge.
Yeah,
huge.
I just can't not getting cheaper.
I just can't get over the plastic. I don't know what to do with all that plastic. I hate the plastic.
Yeah.
I hate the plastic.
I've got a brother-in-law that has a custom chopping business, and he tries to tell me that it is cheaper to put up haylage than to put up dry hay, because you dry it down, so you lose some feed value, and then you got to grind it and everything, and I'm not sure I agree with him if I already have a baler and I already have a moco, and instead of if you're hiring all your haying done anyway. Maybe it is. And a good dry alfalfa bale, I mean, we grind for maybe 15 minutes every 2.5-3 weeks, A good dry alfalfa bale just drops through those big tub grinders. It takes no time.
Yeah.
But you do lose a lot of leaves and stuff, like this spring now, we had some new crop alfalfa. We had oats. It was oats and alfalfa last year. We cut it once. And now this is the first true cutting of it. and it was huge windrows. I had to go out and ted it, and then I had to rake it, and then it got rained on a little bit. So
Yeah.
you have to move it around a lot sometimes.
Yeah, but then there's loss every time you do that. Every time you move it, every time you move it around, you got a little bit of shatter, loss, all that kind of stuff.
So
Baler's
is there ever an issue with? We've thought before that. Well, if we put up haylage, we're going to have an issue with too wet
feed.
of a ration. But I mean, what are the cows eating now? That's a pretty wet ration.
Yeah.
Out there on grass. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I've always struggled with that thought with feeding calves, right? Like not getting it too wet. But what you just said, Luke, is exactly true, right? This grass is so washy, but they're doing fantastic on it.
Yeah,
they're
they look
washy
great.
grass and milk, and they're growing like crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. True. I do think that you can. I mean, I think it's a thing for growing calves for sure. At a certain point, yes, I think that's right. You'll keep them cleaner, and you'll get intakes higher the drier it is. I don't think it's an issue on feeding cows at all, right? And I think that's actually just helps them fill it up. And I know way more people that stick a garden hose in their feeder wagon because their ration is too dry, just to add water to it, to get it to blend, and two, just to fill cows up, right?
Yep.
Than I do that say that their cow ration is too wet. But I think in the calves, it can be a thing.
Some of those cold days, you go out and feed cows, and you up the ration, and you up the ration, and they still are just starving hungry a couple hours later. They're all up at the gate when you're out feeding calves for the second time. They all come to the gate bawling. You're like, man, I just fed you 5,000 pounds.
Yeah. What more do you want? Yeah. Good. Okay. That's the sorghum sedan grass family. Then we have the third option way down the list as far as options is teff grass. And that's pretty much the conversations for haying and chopping that we're having right now, right? For options.
Yeah. Yep. And teff grass, that's the love it or hate it crop. Seems like boom or bust. If you get a stand, this is gonna be phenomenal stuff.
Yeah.
As far as feed quality goes, high protein grass hay.
Yeah.
But
I've
it's
always
a 90-10 seed.
I've always been talked out of the teff grass or Italian rye. Even I'd like Italian ryegrass too, but they say if you live west of the Manchester Road, you don't plant Italian rye.
I'm going to use that.
Yeah, everybody will know what that means. Oh, yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
I'm 1 mile west of the Manchester Road. I'm in the no-go zone for teff or Italian ryegrass. Yeah. Yeah, I've struggled. I will not get any free gifts from the Teff Grass Council. I don't think at any point in my life. I don't think I've helped them along too much. I've just been burned by it. I think it's great to do in good fields on a planned scenario where you're going to do it. But for where we're going in this part of the world, when we're putting in those warm seasonal forages, it's almost never the best half of your ground, right? It's either too dry or too wet, mostly too wet. It's going to have weed pressure already, right? That's coming on. And it's usually going into corn stalks, inconsistent seed depth, cover, too much of that kind of stuff. And I just haven't found a lot of love for it.
The guys that love it, and this is true, we've used it for a guy that he's a commercial hay grower, and he grows alfalfa and he grows teff grass. So to rotate onto his alfalfa, he uses teff, and he's got a strong horse hay market, and it's the best quality grass hay that he could put up. But that's his program, right? He's managing those fields for teff, no different than alfalfa, where that seed bed's pretty firmed up. He's able to plant it shallow. He's got good nitrogen on board, and just spoon feeds that teff grass and gets 3 cuttings on the same schedule that he does with his alfalfa. Produces a lot of high quality feed.
Is that? I assume that's closer, or it's east of here. With that,
Actually, not.
Oh,
Leola area.
okay.
Yeah. So it's not great ground, but maybe it's just
Mm-hmm.
because of the plan and the way that you're doing it. And
Yeah.
But
I
his
just wanted to.
alfalfa's got it so mellow, right? His alfalfa's got it so
Yeah.
mellow, and the
Probably.
subsoil, moisture managed pretty well, and the weed pressure too. To be honest with you, because all those cuttings are getting, some of the cropland weeds. I mean, alfalfa, you had to get that killed off is the biggest challenge, but you don't have a bunch of
Yeah.
embedded kochia seeds and things like that out there traditionally if
Yep.
you're cutting it that many times. So
True. Yep.
there's
Yep.
some advantages, I think, to that, getting it started in that way.
Yes.
Anyway, that's my experience with TEF, but I think TEF has certainly got a place, just not here. Okay, well, we kind of did a long list of different scenarios on annual warm season forages, right?
We hit them.
Do you have some other scenarios, Justin, that we should?
Yeah. I want to
through?
talk through a scenario of perennial pastures right now. Just with the amount of rain that we've had and great growth and coming off of 2 years of very limited growth, and just hear your thoughts of what you're doing. If you're doing anything different because you got a lot of growth, or how you guys are managing them.
Luke, how are you rotating? I saw you the other day actually out rotating cows. I drove by.
Oh yeah.
You were far enough away. I didn't honk.
Okay. Yeah, I probably just stuck out my hand and waved and not even looked to see who it was. Yeah, I don't know that. Like you said, the brome grass is shoulder high.
Yeah.
And there's just no way to even keep up with that stuff right now. So we got one pasture. I had 90 cows on it, and I put cedars in. I just AI'd them yesterday. But when I put cedars in, I sorted off 10 head to get it down to 80 head. And I grazed over that piece of ground really hard. And actually, I got that big country mix from Milborn there, and I broadcasted as I moved them a little bit, because they're just it's kind of a degraded pasture. And we just moved them off of there yesterday. We're going to move them to a different pasture later today. And it's going to sit there. I didn't graze over the whole thing. So that's part of the program with this wet season. Last year I grazed it rotationally a little bit. But when it's so terrible dry like that, that's probably when you really should be grazing it hard. Managing it in a brittle environment. But I have a hard time doing that. But when it's growing like this, it's not hard at all to go out there and hit it hard. So yeah, we grazed that one really hard. Now they're going to a different piece of grass that's got really good brome. That's about all that's out there. And I hope that they're there for 60 days. Go move them every 2 weeks maybe or something like that. Try and go through that brome grass. That's 1 or maybe 2 weeks. If I do 1 week, it might race through it just a little bit, hit the tops off, and keep it regrowing just a little bit. Have to see what all's going on, if I have time for all that or what.
I've got a couple pieces where we've got enough different paddocks to rotate through that I hit once pretty hard this spring. Got them off by the 10th, 15th of June, 2 different spots. And I can't foresee a scenario where I'll have to go back, where I need to go back onto them this year at all. So I'm going to try and just rest them the entire year and see what that looks like next spring.
So is it not too early because of the wet, cool season that we've been having, are you not going to have a lot of regrowth on your cool season, or maybe you don't care if you do?
But I mean, I think it's going to still regrow. I don't think we've had anything that's going to tip it into dormancy. So I think it is going to regrow, but hopefully hopefully we get as much grass as possible. But I think that this stuff I hit hard enough that it won't be a shading out height for the warm season grasses.
Okay, yeah, that was one question I wanted to ask while I was on here today, was can you manage a piece of grass for both warm and cool season? Can your cows utilize both of those forages? Or if you graze a piece to promote warm season, do you need to let that sit and not use it?
I'm so unbalanced on high cool season, low warm season that my plan was to let it sit and try and maintain the balance. If I was more balanced, then I think I would want to come back on this piece the 10th of August, get a 60-day rest there and then come back. But I'm actually more because we won't need it this year. I can leave some grass on which way or the other, but I'd much rather do that and leave that regrowth than I would leave a chunk of brome grass just fully headed out, leave it till it needs to start regrowing again. So I think that once it's more balanced, yes, then ideally you'd come back 50 to 60 days later and come back on it, and you'd have something there. I think it's a good chance in some of those pieces to get much better root establishment and maybe some seed heads put out on the warm season stuff.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I'm kind of convinced now that since we can't guess what the year's going to bring, we know that we want a combination of them both. And as long as you're rotating through them, and you're then rotating your rotation schedule of when you're hitting that piece, you're going to contain, your paddocks are going to contain both warm and cool season grasses. But then depending on what the weather gives you, you'll see them shine differently each year.
Sure. Yeah, it's amazing if you graze a piece early in May, late April, or any time through May, and you graze it pretty hard. And a piece that you've never seen big blue stem, it'll be there that fall. I mean,
Yes.
You'll see flower stalks that year almost.
Yep.
Every time.
Yep. Heck of a year for green needlegrass and porcupine grass. I've seen porcupine grass in places that I don't know if I've ever seen it before.
Okay.
I've seen in some pastures. I've got spots where it actually vegetative might be 30% porcupine grass, porcupine grass. Not needle and thread porcupine grass.
Okay. They're so similar.
I know.
Horrible name, but actually not a bad grass, like at the base of that one.
Porcupine grass isn't as bad as it sounds.
Yep.
It looks bad, but I mean, it looks like, it's got 5-inch awns. I mean, it's got quills on it, but they're not that bad right now. When they get mature, probably get some pink eye. But I'm going to get them off that piece too, so it shouldn't happen.
There's not much that doesn't cause pink eye late summer here.
They're pretty much just going to get pink eye.
Sometimes I think it's just from them standing in a corner swishing their tails around. I think they slap an eye in it.
Yep.
But that's one thing with rotational grazing, since we're talking about rotational grazing. Cattle do not bunch up and stand in corners as bad if you graze.
Yes.
Yeah, you don't give them their favorite corner every time.
Yeah, they do a little bit, but you go make a back fence back there again, and they're soon going grazing. You can learn to manage that. You can go out and instead of moving every morning, you go out and move after lunch, and they go graze their fresh grass instead of feeling sorry for themselves and swatting flies in a corner somewhere.
Yep.
Yeah.
It works.
That's
really
one thing
nice.
I hate about these late calvers right now. We've got a few left, and they care so much more about fighting flies than they do about their calves. They're like, are you even raising these things? Like, I drive by, all I see is cows. The calves are off hidden somewhere. It's like, do you even go find them and let them suck, or you just stand around in a little group? It's only 10 of them. Stand around swatting each other with their tails. It's like, go find your calves.
You cannot find those suckers right now.
No. I don't know what it is.
That was the first time I had fall calvers. I was not used to that at all. We had a pretty early calf in spring group, and you go out, you're like, man, I know this cow calved, but you couldn't find it for 3 days.
Yeah.
And then you would finally find it, and think it would be nice, big, and healthy. You've been nursing, you just couldn't find it. It's like a deer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see what the rest of the summer brings. You're going to go with the covers after the oats and after the rye, Luke? Is that kind of the plan?
Planning on it. Yeah, I guess that AgSpire program is supposed to be helping pay for some of that, I think. And
yep, it is. Yep.
Kind of enthused about that. There was maybe some biochar I could add in.
Yep. Then we're going to do biochar on the seed, as a seed treatment. So we're going to mix it in a powdered form, kind of with the seed, kind of like you'd do talc or something like that. Because you're going to go with a drill, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll kind of put it on that way as a seed coating. It's supposed to kind of help activate things when it goes into the soil.
So it's activated. We'll see what happens. It's loaded with something.
Yeah. So we're gonna work on getting it activated, but I think that we're also putting it in as a cover crop, we're hoping that it activates kind of within the soil, right? Within the organic matter of the soil. Because a lot of times it's like, oh, we want to affect this crop, right? Well, we don't really need to affect the cover crop. We just want to get biochar activated in the soil for the next crop, right?
Oh,
So,
sure.
but by the way that we're applying it, most of it work is done is like, oh, we want biochar, we're going to put it on this crop. We want to see effect when we put the biochar on. We're trying to get the biochar in the soil and then activate, do what it does ahead of it. And so we'll do that this year, and the next year we're going to try different things. We'll do some of the bulk spreading. We'll get some participants in the future that want to do the 1,500 pounds an acre dry spread on top, but we'll probably do that like the year before. So we'll probably put that on like with the rye, necessarily going to winter annual instead of in the spring. So you're going to try a couple different ways, because that is the challenge of activating it from an application standpoint. It's like, well, the stuff is really dry, it's pretty easy to work with and everything, but then when we start mixing it with compost, it becomes a very different thing that is not easy to manage and not dry and not uniform. So we're trying to experiment a couple different ways that we can get biochar included without it being a massive inconvenience. Because for it to be scalable and usable, it can't be an inconvenient thing. It's like all these things, like they can be positive, but if they're not convenient and user friendly, they're not going to get used at scale. So how can we? It might not be perfect, but how can we get it scalable?
Yep, that makes sense.
Yeah,
that'd be easy.
Yeah, I think that's coming in next week. The biochar.
Okay, we kind of got off topic of your perennial pasture there, Justin.
Oh yeah, we did.
It's on topic.
Okay.
Yeah.
We got back to the pasture. I guess I talked to you, Justin, the other day about it. We got a pasture that Dad thought that Grandpa used to harvest one of the wheat grasses off of. He couldn't remember which one. And you wouldn't know it looking at it now. There's one of it we hayed for years and years. We go out there and cut prairie hay off of it. And it is just a 4 stand of bluegrass. That's all that's in that piece now. And I was asking Justin what I could do with that. And I'd wondered about going out there with like a pound or 2 pounds an acre of a mix of clovers and a little alfalfa. And I still think I might do that because I'd like that extra protein kick out there. But he was telling me I needed to go out there and graze it in April, but it's like 6 miles from home up a muddy dirt road. And it's only and that piece is only 30 acres. There's more grass out there, but it's all a lot better shape. So I'm not sure how to manage that piece.
I'm not so sure that we don't need to start over on some of these Kentucky bluegrass patches. I don't know. It's so aggressive early. I think there's ways you can manage it, but if it's solid Kentucky bluegrass, it more than likely has a crop history on it, and that's just what got planted back there because it was super easy to establish and very defensive. And it's going to be super easy to establish and very defensive every spring because it's Kentucky bluegrass. And I don't know. I think there's some things you could try. The clover route is got some merit to it, and I think could work. But to move that from Kentucky blue into a more diverse native mixture, I think is going to be a big challenge.
Well, at this point, I'd be happy if it was even brome grass.
Yeah, I hear you.
Instead of that bluegrass.
I hear you. And I'm not, like I said, I do think that some of that stuff almost needs to start over.
But that's not easy to do either. Justin was out looking at a neighbor's field that was blowing bad this spring.
Yeah, I know.
That's what you risk if you take it out.
I understand.
Yeah.
I understand.
Yeah, that lack of production for years.
I would say, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I've been around some breakings like alfalfa. Alfalfa is maybe not the greatest example, but some grass hay that's been taken out of grass hay and put into crop production. You get a few years where you have enough organic matter, even if you're doing tons of tillage, because I've seen people just till the heck out of it. My dad did this, and I was like, worried about it this spring. And he had a grass hay field that he wanted to take out the middle of it, put it back into a field, leave the borders around and everything. And my dad's pretty old school, and he thought, it's the grass. You got to tear it up. You got to get it really good and tore up. So 2 times the one-way disc, a high-speed disc twice this spring. 4 tillage passes on it, and that thing did not blow at all. because it's got all kinds of organic matter. So the prairies didn't blow the first year that they plowed them, or the second year, or the third year. It was like 5+ a decade into it, where they had lost all their organic matter, destroyed all their soil structure, and then they had loose particles that started blowing like crazy. Mm-hmm. So I think if you're going to do it, you've got a window where you can get, if you've got nothing but Kentucky bluegrass and it's an absolute waste of a hayfield or pasture, you've got an opportunity over a few years where you have enough soil structure where you're not going to blow that bad to get it back into something. Yep. But still destroy the seed, somewhat of the cycle of that Kentucky blue, because it's I don't know, it's very challenging to get rid of otherwise. It really is.
Yeah, it's pretty aggressive. But I would say if there's anything that you could get in there, it's probably red clover. For some reason, you can get red clover in Kentucky bluegrass stands decently if you get the right weather with it.
And maybe that'd be good enough if you could just add a little feed value to what's there, and the cows graze it if it's early enough. The
problem is
do
just
graze
nothing there. It's just so short and spindly. And
mm-hmm.
It's already. I mean, 1st of June that sucker's headed out and gone mature too. But.
Yep. Yeah, even now the cows haven't been in that paddock. That was the first paddock they were in.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just patches that they graze, and then there's
where it was vegetating, they kind of got ahead of it, and the rest they leave. Yep. So I've been sitting on this graze it, harvest it, rent it out for about a month. We got to use it, okay? So it came from your other neighbor, Derek Hofer.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's timely, okay? So this was his submission for the game. So he says it's June, and this is like his real life scenario from 3 years ago because he had pictures of it. And it was a solid sea of foxtail barley, 1 foot tall headed out oats, and a lush stand of Garrison creeping foxtail. So you have to graze one, you have to harvest one, and you have to rent one out. Jared, are you going first, or Luke, are you going first?
Okay, you had foxtail barley, Garrison creeping, and what was the other one?
1 foot tall, headed out
oats.
Oats, yeah. Okay. I'm gonna graze the oats. Okay.
Grazing the oats? Okay.
I'm gonna graze the oats. Yeah.
All right.
I'm gonna graze the oats. It's not gonna be much out there, but it's gonna be punchy. Hopefully.
Full of nitrates.
I don't know. I don't condone grazing and feeding high nitrate feedstuffs. Okay, just put it out there. I also think that the tests are scarier than most of the time the actual result is. So just saying that. Again, this is not a recommendation that you can feed high nitrate feedstuffs and be fine. I'm just saying I think a lot of times we wouldn't be scared about what we're feeding until we did the test proactively. And then it's like, oh, you can't feed that. It's like, well, what if we did, though? What would really happen,
The cows are probably open right now.
Yeah,
maybe.
Right. Yeah, so maybe there's a time to do it. Okay, anyway, so not condoning high nitrate feedstuffs. I'm just saying I think we get scared more than what we should by nitrates. So I'm going to graze the oats. Final answer on the oats.
Okay.
I'm going to harvest the Garrison. Going to make some good hay, and I'm going to sell them. I'm going to do it right now. I'm going to wait a week. I'm going to wait till all the seed heads are black, and then I'm going to sell them to other people that want to buy 1 or 2 bales at a time for a premium and do a germination test on the seeds and sell them as, basically a low ground fix mix, right? Since we don't have pasture fix mix anymore because we've been trying to buy it, I guess we don't make it. To sell that, to put out on low lying areas where you're either been feeding or you have a slough or saline, and just put it out with a bale processor, feed it in the wintertime, and then let it be, and you've got a nice seed bed of Garrison anywhere you want to introduce it, and then it'll kind of take off and grow from there. And then I'm going to rent out the foxtail barley to a local gal who does family pictures and senior photos for a nice a nice, beautiful backdrop of fuzzy grass that people can frolic around in.
Well, I didn't have the photographic enterprise in mind, but I was going to rent out that foxtail barley as well because I don't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
And if somebody else could come along and pay me a little something for it, they can use it however they want to.
What if no one will rent it? What if no one will rent it?
Burn it. That was but it could be maybe.
Yeah, I guess get a neighbor's bush hog, or if you got one yourself, we don't have one, I rent one. Go out and mow the stuff down.
Rent it to the government. Put it in CRP.
Yeah.
Let the government pay your rent.
Yeah. I don't know. You got to find something to do. You don't want to put that into hay. You get lumps.
No.
That's terrible stuff. Terrible stuff for that. I don't know how to take care of them oats and the. So if you harvest it, and graze it. If you harvest it, yeah, I'd maybe. How short were them oats? A foot tall?
A foot.
Well, you couldn't hardly windrow that stuff, could you?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Pretty thin.
Yeah, that's awful thin. I wonder if you could get a guy with a merger to make a couple windrows with it.
Yeah.
Because then you could harvest it and you could graze it. I think I'd rather graze that Garrison than I would the oats.
Yeah.
And then when you blend it off, if that would work, I think I'm going to do that. I think that's what I would do. I would figure out how to make some big windrows out of that stuff and either chop it wet or bale it wet, and then you'd blend it off that nitrate, so you wouldn't have an issue there if you wanted to feed it in the wintertime.
Yeah.
And then I'd turn something loose in that grass and let them graze that down.
Solid answer.
Everybody, it's like whose line is it anyway? Like, the points don't matter.
Yeah.
Everybody's a winner.
Yep.
What about you, Justin? What would you do with it?
I'd probably do the same thing as what you do. Yeah, I wouldn't mess with the foxtail barley. I'd just punt on that one.
Yeah, that's a tough one to use.
Don't think if it makes like a useful decorative material or something. Oh, I had another nightmare scenario happen this spring here at my place. I was helping Katie clean up the landscaping, and there was 2 non-headed out, pale green, slightly bluish bunch grasses growing in her landscaping. Looked like in a dedicated planted spot, and I know she did do some ornamental grasses. So I'm like, oh, I don't want to pull those out. It looks like they're supposed to be growing there. Like a foot apart, 2 just bunches, and then rock all the way around it. Week and a half later, it heads out. It's foxtail barley. Growing right in my 3 feet from my house, right there. That's too close. That's way too close. They're pulling out.
Early on, it doesn't look like a bad grass. It looks like it should be palatable.
Did you go wrap a Walmart bag around the tops and cut it off?
No, I pulled it out the root and threw it in the dumpster. I didn't even want to feed it.
Because that stuff, you can go mow it even before it's all headed out. You go mow it, and that stuff still matures somehow and blows all over the place, it looks like.
Yeah.
Yep. What did Derek do with it? Do you know?
Bedding.
Yeah.
He went and mowed it and baled it up.
Hate it.
Yeah. That wouldn't be a bad option either, I guess, to go put it down in your calving pen or something, let them lay on it.
Yep.
I usually have thistles growing in mine. See, it's that and Canadian thistles. Which is then what do you do?
Yeah.
Now what?
I had a neighbor that had a new seeding alfalfa that had a bunch of thistles in it, and he chopped it and put it in a big pile and softened up the thistles a little bit.
Yep.
Yeah, it probably worked pretty good.
Yeah.
Probably. Good. Well, Luke, thanks for joining us today. Coffee mug's probably empty.
Yeah, thanks for the conversation.
You bet.
Fun having both you guys in one place for a bit.
Yeah,
it's fun to catch up.
Appreciate the time. So,
yeah,
very good.
But,
yeah. Well, to all our other listeners too, if you have graze it, harvest it, rent it out scenarios, you got to email them in.
Or you can text Justin, because I did that this spring.
Please text them.
I have this little tiny native grass garden with some great big boulders sitting in it, and and it not grown very good. And I had a bunch of wild lettuce and stuff growing in. It's like, what do I do with this? And he goes, that sounds like a graze it rented or harvested deal.
They are.
So I electric netted it off and put my bucks in there for a while.
There you go.
Grazed it.
And you mentioned AgSpire. We are doing an event in Sioux Falls on Friday, so that would be what's the 18th is Tuesday today, so the 22nd. Is that right?
Yeah.
22nd Friday. On Friday, the 22nd of June, here at 4 o'clock at the convention center. And we're just doing a roundtable. We've got some folks from around the country that are invited to come and speak on a panel just about on-the-ground sustainability programs and what they might look like and how they've taken shape. Representative from Fulton Marketing Group, which does all the purchasing for McDonald's. Don Gales, who's the CEO of Friona Industries, the second largest cattle feeder in the United States. And then one of our participants in our program from Minnesota, Brady Wolf. Having that discussion on Friday at 4 o'clock at the convention center. And if you want to go to the AgSpire sites, you should be able to find an invite. And if not, just message me or email Roots and Ruminants, and we can make sure you have the information that you need. So
that's Friday the 21st.
21st. Okay, I was wondering because the 22nd. That's like I think that's the Cattlemen's Gala. So Friday the 21st, and then the next day is the South Dakota Cattlemen's Gala in Sioux Falls. So,
yeah. Alrighty.
Join us if you can.
Thanks so much, Luke.
All right. Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you.
See ya.
Well, we hope you enjoyed another episode of the Roots and Ruminants podcast. Let us know what you thought of it. You can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all those social media things. And, if you ever have any questions, just give us a call. We've got a toll-free number here at 888-498-7333. Be glad to hear from you. Thank you.